Hey Bat fans, Luke here ready to bat chat about another Bat book, and today we're going to take a look at Batman Impostors. Now this book is written by Dave Hine with pencils by Scott McDaniel and inks by Andy Owens. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the at least 2/3 of the creative team. Andy Owens, not going to say too much about, but I do want to focus on the writer and the penciler. Let's start with the one you'll probably know more than the other one. Scott McDaniel. Scott McDaniel is an artist that, again, you should, if you know your pre-New 52 Batman, if you've been reading any of the stories, you'll recognize him, at least his name. You'll notice him, if you remember back, you had him with Ed Brubaker, with stories throughout. I think he was also with Greg Rucka too, but you would have saw him in that the Bruce Wayne Murderer, if I correct correctly, and Fugitive, in addition to a couple others. I think you would have saw him a little bit in No Man's Land, if I remember correctly. In addition to that one Brubaker story with Deadshot, that was Scott McDaniel. In addition to other things. So yeah, you should definitely know Scott McDaniel. So he's probably the more prominent person on the creative team on this book. Additionally, we have David Hine. David Hine, off the top of my head, you should recognize him if you remember the story, and I think that was also in Detective Comics, Arkham Reborn. And Arkham Reborn is sort of like a companion slash continuation of the story Batman Life After Death. That one was written and drawn, matter of fact, by Tony S. Daniel. And those two stories together, again, this is pre-New 52, without spoiling too much of the concept, we'll just call it the reemergence of Black Mask, which was I don't want to say a major, but we'll call it a significant tweak on the persona of Black Mask. I'll kind of leave it there. So that was David Hine, him kind of, again, making his mark in the Batman universe. I can't remember off the top of my head if he did anything before. He probably did, but just off the top of my head, that's what you would kind of recognize him for. So that's pretty much a creative team. So these aren't, the rookies. These are ones that kind of been around for a little bit, and Scott McDaniel obviously around with during a time of significant Batman stories. Now this one, I think this is issues 867 to 870. Yes, this is a simple four-parter that we found in Detective Comics 867 to 870. And if you're doing your Batman timeline at home, this is like the very tail end of the New 52. If you're actually kind of looking at it, the very tail end, obviously Flashpoint. But before that was my favorite Batman story of all time, The Black Mirror. And this was right before it, at least in publication. And timeline, I think it'd be about the same. So this is like very toward the tail end, and obviously that Gates of Arkham, or Gates of Gotham, I'm sorry. So this is like the very tail end, right before we had the relaunch of the New 52. And this one, it's a pretty basic story. To be basically a basic story and just being pretty much up front. This one does, as you kind of see in the cover here, it does, ties into the Gotham City Impostors video game. To be honest, didn't play it. Don't even remember it, so I'm not going to have too much to say on the actual game itself. Other than you can check out YouTube or whatever. But basically what we have here in concept is that you have these people across Gotham that become Jokerized through the use of the Joker toxin. And in doing so, you kind of have these people that also kind of don the Batman persona to battle against the Jokerized people. And in between all this, is a good people Gotham and the GCPD and Batman itself. And basically what you actually see in those two factions is a really extreme undertaking of the person that they're kind of, being imposters of, hence the name of the story. The people who who are injected by this Joker toxin, either willingly or unwillingly, it's kind of like it's like the Joker toxin, like as we know it, but it's kind of a step down, and it kind of enhances other traits. It's actually remarked in here in the story is it's kind of like a steroid, in that you kind of lose all sensibility, and it's not permanent. You get the Joker grin, whatnot. I'll see if I can kind of get some bat pages in there. You see someone willingly taking it. So you actually get the Batman or the Joker facial mark that actually kind of explains how that kind of happens. That affects the different muscles in the face that cause that permanent grin. But this one, it's not permanent. It kind of comes and goes. But it really does kind of amp up someone's physical attributes. It's kind of like a steroid, and that really amps up your strength. And you kind of don't know limits, and you don't remember what you're doing. But it's really like a euphoria too. So you really get this really good feeling. But again, you're kind of like pushed over to the edge, and you don't remember much other than obviously the feeling itself. And on the other side, Batman, it kind of goes back to that Batman trait of, there's the one golden rule that he has. Well, these are people, and even, spoilers, these are police as well, who kind of adopt this imposter Batman persona, who are willing to kind of go to the extreme. Obviously want to protect people, protect the city, but they will go to the extreme to kind of do so, and they have no problem killing. Basically what it comes down to, we'll get into that in a minute. So that's the basic plot. And again, then there's Batman, who's kind of caught in the middle in all this. And you see there's this person who's kind of driving the chain and all this. Let me see if I know his name. I can't think. It's Norman. Yeah, excuse me for one minute, but there's this one person who's, again, he's kind of driving the train and all this, and it's this person that actually had a prior altercation with the Joker in this. Oh God, what is his name? This is driving me nuts. But basically, yeah, so I'm sure I'll run into it. This person had an earlier altercation with the Joker. But this one, it's it's Mr. Heath. Winslow Heath. There it is. So Winslow had an altercation also with Joker for the fourth time. In that he was actually what we find out is his fiance. And he was kind of caught in the crossfire between Batman and Joker. And Joker threw his Joker toxin at Winslow. And Batman tried to save him. He did. And he got him just to the point where he was telling him they don't fully inhale. So he got him just to the point where the effects weren't permanent. But it wasn't really much of the exposure to the Joker toxin, the limited amount that kind of prevented him from dying. Is that he also actually had, with his fiance, or girlfriend at the time, we're kind of taking some drugs in the ceiling, in the rooftop. So he wasn't an angel to begin with. But you actually see that, again, the effects weren't permanent. But he kind of put him in this coma. And during this coma, you had the hospital that were kind of taking care of him. But they didn't know he was in a coma to begin with. Because he looked like he was dead. But he was in this paralysis. He couldn't speak. And it kind of reminds me of if you watch your heavy metal videos, Metallica 1. Where you have that person who can only speak in Morse code. But as far as, just being, quote unquote, I hate to say it, kind of like in a vegetative state. That's kind of like he was in. He could sit there. People thought he was actually in a coma, but he really wasn't. He could see, he could hear what was going on around him, but he couldn't communicate. As the guy in the video can do Morse code. This one, he really couldn't communicate. So they were kind of proceeding on him, and they went to cut him up, and he started bleeding. That's when they realized, oh man, this guy's actually alive. And in doing so, he kind of... Well, the ultimate thing that couldn't save him also was his face. The paralysis they succeeded. Everything else but the hair color, skin color, and the paralysis in his face didn't go away. But he got a civil lawsuit. Came across all this money. So he now is a power player. But the person who was kind of funding the initial treatment of Winslow was actually Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne sits there and says, hey, you know, Wayne Enterprises will fund his recovery. But all it comes down to, it's all because of Batman. He felt bad. He wanted to make sure, you know, he saved him. But in doing so, Winslow kind of puts a turn on Batman. We actually find out, again, he's the one that's kind of driving this Joker toxin in a way that kind of gets back to the city for how he was being treated when he was kind of in this vegetated state where everyone thought he was in a coma and whatnot. And you actually see, I mean, people were rough. People were kind of like making fun of him, playing tricks on him while he was laying in the hospital bed, and they thought he was in a coma. But obviously he felt he was mistreated. And ultimately, it's the other kind of motivation for why he's doing what he's doing. It kind of goes back to that, hey, you know, Batman, he kind of plays this, hey, this is also on you. This is on the city for what they did to me, but this is also on you because at the end of the day, all these bad people here in Gotham, they're here because of you. And it's something that's kind of, we've seen before. It's not original storytelling, but you've seen it. I mean, one book I highly recommend you read is, you know, Kings of Fear. It just wrapped up as a 6-issue mini. Peterson, I think the name of the writer, and Kelly Jones on art. And it's one of those things that you kind of, one of the themes they hit on is, you know, what would, you know, Batman's rogues do if there was no Batman? It's kind of like you've seen some examples of them being like total opposites, like Riddler using his knowledge for good. Forget the Joker, what he was doing. But all the bad people, they have their power, but instead of using it for bad, since there's no Batman, it actually turned out in a way, if there was no branch in the timeline or the events that kind of triggered down to them doing what they're doing, actually using it for good. But that's kind of like his argument, say, hey, all these bad people are here, it's because of you. And again, we kind of seen that kind of theme hit on a lot, but again, during Kings of Fear, is really, there's another twist to it, I'll kind of leave it out, but it was interesting. And it kind of comes down to crescendo at the end. Again, it's, you see here the big plot at the very end. There's this this big fair that Winslow Heath's gonna throw. I think it's called the Bartholomew Fair. That kind of gets referenced as something that occurred in, you know, early England. It actually was the place of a big revolt that came down, and that's basically it. That's the way there to kind of get the Joker toxin out. There's one person who, it's kind of like the head of the imposter Batman side. Again, actually kills a little kid in this book. I'm not going to say who that is, but again, it actually turned out having both sides turned against each other. And that's really about it. I mean, that's mainly the plot. There's a cliffhanger toward the end that maybe you could potentially see the difference of, you know, or the reappearance of Winslow Heath. And that's basically it. Overall, this was an okay story. Very okay. The good thing about this is one you don't really need to have any prior knowledge of, because this is almost out of nowhere. This almost felt like it was like kind of like made for the video game. Again, I didn't play the video game, but I kind of see this just being the story to just kind of launch that. There's really no continuation of anything from before. You get some kind of cameos in here. Also, you see Oracle, as you see here. Again, this is pre-New 52, so this is Barbara Gordon as Oracle. Alfred's in here. Obviously, Commissioner Gordon. Harvey Bullock. I don't know if Renee Montoya is in this one or not. But that's really about it. As far as appearance-wise, this is pretty much straight up, you know, a Batman sort of centric story. So no prior knowledge needed. Again, this is like the concept we've kind of seen before, but it was still kind of interesting. One of the bads, just to be honest, you just knew this was this fair that they were, you know, kind of leading to the end of why they chose to do it. You just knew this was like, you can kind of see, yeah, I see where it's going to be head to head where the Jokers and the Batmen come head to head against each other. You knew this was going to be the plot tool to kind of get it there. So that did feel kind of cheap. I do like the take on the Joker toxin, in that it's not really full blown the Joker toxin, but it's kind of one step back, and what it can kind of do. It's kind of interesting. And you like to see the effects they actually had this recently married couple. You can kind of see slowly as what the effects of this toxin can do to a person. It was pretty interesting. So I give it in the fact I like the take on the Joker toxin, but then again, the whole idea of a whole Gotham City being terrorized by the Joker toxin, we've seen it a lot in game, basically. So be that as it is, I liked how they had the concept of a Joker with actually having the Joker in it. The Heath guy, he didn't feel like too much of a throwaway character. This is something, again, it's a sympathetic guy. You can see his motivation, obviously taken to the wrong way, but still, I guess what I can come down to say, while in concept the story wasn't original, it was still fun, but not too much fun. I will say the politics in this, keep in mind what it is, but reading it today, it just kind of just punch you like right in the face. You're just like, oh. So from that perspective, police, against the city, it kind of is what it is. If you're trying to escape that type of rhetoric, maybe not as much, but still enjoyable. Would I recommend this one? I'm not sure, to be honest. It was fun. Okay. I kind of put this in like the 2.5 out of 5 at best. But yeah, only if you're a diehard Batman fan, collecting all the Bat trades. Yeah, get your collection. If you haven't read everything, you still want to get all this stuff, you take a read at it. I think this is out of print, so might have to mark up. I got lucky, found it when I was home during Christmas. To the casual Batman fans, no, I wouldn't recommend it. To the newbies, no. At some point, yes, but prioritize the mainstay stuff. Price wise, it's 4 issues. Cover price is $14.99 if you're lucky to get it for cover price. So it's not that bad of a deal. But as far as, I don't know, quality, go after the other stuff and then eventually come back to it, if that kind of makes sense. You read it, you kind of keep in mind what the type of story that you're getting ready to get into. It's okay, but don't go in with high expectation, I guess is what I'm kind of saying. So 2.5 out of 5 at best. I went in there with the right frame of mind when I reread this. It's just kind of take it for what it is, and if you kind of go in the right perspective, you'll get some enjoyment out of it. So anyway, that was Batman Impostors. Hit me up in the comments below what you thought about this book if you read it. We'll bat chat and go from there. So until next video, which I'm not sure, could be a single issue or a trade. We'll see. I got some trades I like to talk about too. So anyway, also, if you're digging trades right now, Bat Josh, he's doing this January Batty thing where he's every day for the month of January covering a Bat trade. So highly recommend you check that out. If you haven't, I'll link one of his videos so you can kind of keep up if you haven't subscribed to him. Just really doing a better job what I'm doing here. But anyway, until next video, take care.